Only the rhythmic sound of my chisel against oak and the occasional visit from a neighbor who wants to trade a jar of honey for a repaired fence post. My life became quiet. And in that quiet, I found my own version of family. It started with a kid named Toby. He was 19, a local boy who'd been kicked out of his house for reasons that sounded all too familiar. Parents who prioritized their own spiritual journey over providing a stable environment. He was sleeping in his truck at the trailhead when I found him. I didn't take him in. I'm not a martyr, but I offered him work in my shop. I taught him how to sand, how to respect the grain of the wood, and how to measure twice so you don't have to cry once. One afternoon, while we were working on a dining table for a client, he stopped and looked at me. "Why are you helping me, Leo?" he asked, his voice cracking. "You don't even know me." I didn't look up from my plane. "And because someone once sat in a chair next to my hospital bed when he didn't have to. I'm just paying the rent on that chair." A few weeks later, I got one last piece of news from the old life. It wasn't a call or a text. I'd changed my number and scrubbed my digital footprint. It was a physical letter, forwarded through 3 different addresses, eventually landing in my mailbox. It was from my sister Chloe. The envelope was cheap, the paper lined and torn from a notebook. No designer logos, no brand aesthetic. "Leo, I'm not asking for money. I know I'm dead to you. I'm writing this because I finally watched the video Mom took of my solo that night. You know, the one in the hospital? I looked at their faces in the crowd. They weren't even watching me, Leo. They were on their phones. I'm probably checking the likes on the post Mom made about being a dance mom. I was a prop. I've always been a prop. You were the lucky one because you were invisible. At least you got to be real. I don't know who I am when the camera is off. The van broke down in Nebraska. Mom and Dad are staying with a cousin who charges them rent and they're miserable. I think I'm going to stay here and work at a diner. I'm tired of performing. I'm sorry for everything." I read it twice. I felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, exactly, but a recognition of shared wreckage. We had both been raised in a house of mirrors. I had just been the only one brave enough to break them and walk out through the glass. I didn't reply. I couldn't. There was no bridge left to cross, and I didn't want to build one. I folded the letter. I walked over to my wood-burning stove and watched it turn to ash. That evening, Coach Miller called. He's older now, his voice a bit gravelly, but he still calls me son in a way that feels earned rather than inherited. "How's the mountain life, Leo?" "It's good, Coach. Quiet. You coming down for the holidays? Martha's making that ham you like. She says if you don't show up, she's sending it by courier and charging you the shipping." I smile. A real one that reached my eyes. "I'll be there, Coach. I'll bring the bourbon." "Good lad. And Leo, I saw that table you finished on your website. You've got a gift for making things solid. Most people just want things to look good. You make them last." I hung up and looked around my home. It wasn't a mansion. It didn't have a golden child wing or a room dedicated to forgotten trophies. It was just a house built on a foundation of hard work and self-respect. The scar on my side didn't ache anymore. The 12 missed calls were a distant static. I walked out onto my porch and watched the sun dip below the peaks, painting the sky in colors that no camera could ever truly capture. I was 28 years old. I had survived my family, survived the fire, and survived the golden child. I was no longer defined by who didn't show up. I was defined by the man who was standing right here, breathing the clean mountain air entirely and beautifully alone. I went back inside and got to work. I had a lot of things left to build.